And now for something completely different. Or maybe not completely different. Here's the deal, right? You've got the Kallax, your shelves are overwhelmed with games, they're overflowing, they're taking over your entire world, and you're having to build an extension out of board games just to make the space for them. Or simply you feel like you've bought too many games recently and could probably use a clear out. That's what I want to talk about today, how to best clear out your collection. Now, you may already know that we are actually part of a magazine, the Tabletop Gaming magazine in the UK. You can head to our website to take a look at more information and pick yourself up a coffee. I'm not going to lie. It's great. Inside here in issue 51, we had a fabulous article about using the art of the D6 to clear out your collection by Matthew Vernal, and I thought it was brilliant. So you know what? Let's share the love on this. Just as an aside, it looks like this. This is actually part of my collection. Rather embarrassingly, they were not sorted at all, and we're going to be talking about the different ways and different things to consider when it is that you're clearing out your collection. So thank you, Matthew Vernal, for this. This is marvellous. Number 1, dedicate your gaming space. This is almost like a pre-warning. When you start collecting games or start picking up games, you don't necessarily think about the space that they're going into. You sort of just go, I really like this one. This one's great. This is fine. I'll add this to the collection. And before you know it, you've built piles and piles of them with nowhere to put them. This is all about having an upper limit. So having a dedicated space. This is where games are going to go, and this is where games are going to need to fit. And if they don't fit, there needs to be some kind of clear out, maybe a one in, one out system. Let's be honest, it's going to need to be easily accessible because we're going to want to be able to reach for those games quite regularly, and potentially a little bit out of the way, because as I can attest, board games come out, stay out, and they're all over the house. They need their own space. Step number 2 is your darlings. Identify which games are those which are most important to you. There are some games that you are never ever going to want to get rid of. That might be because of sentimentality. In my case, for example, I have a copy of Mysterium. I am very rarely the one to use it. My gaming group will use their copy whenever we go round because they've got the expansions, whereas I have my base game. However, I am never ever going to get rid of it. It is one of my favourite games. It is a gateway game and it's important to me. So it's staying on the shelf. I've got a couple with special edition and extra features. Again, they're not going anywhere. Those are my darlings and those are staying. Everything else, then I need to consider how important it is. Matthew recommends this is no more than 8 games so that you keep this nice and tidy and so that you know what the soul of your collection is. What sort of things is it that you really enjoy and that you can't part with in any collection that you have? Number 3, which games do you delight in owning? This reminds me a little bit of the Marie Kondo advice, which is that does it spark joy? In this case, is it something that you look at and it just makes you happy? It might be that they've got special features. It might be that the game is no longer available because of copyright reasons, or it's in an old print, or you can't get hold of it anymore. These are ones that you are happy to own and desperately want to keep, and therefore they should also remain in your collection. With the caveat being, of course, do you play these games? Sure, it might be out of print and you may not be able to get hold of it again, but how often does it come to the table? Something to think about. Number 4, downsize. Are there ways to downsize in your collection? I particularly find this very difficult. I love having expansion boxes and I would much rather keep them in the boxes themselves, but where space is an issue, really they could be pulled down a little bit. There's all sorts of accessories you can get to build more space in your core box games to add in those expansions so that they all sit together, rather than having a huge collection of game plus expansion plus expansion plus expansion plus expansion when you could just have game. Appreciate the logic. I can't do it. How about you? Do you keep your expansions in the same box or do you separate them out? There is also, although not necessarily mentioned in the article, a very controversial version of putting them into Ziploc bags so that they take up much, much less space and you get rid of the box completely. There's something about that I find really heartbreaking, but I'd love to know your thoughts, so let me know in the comments if that's something you've done or would recommend, or if it scares you like it does me. Again, of course, you're going to need to consider, are the expansions worth it? Are you keeping them for a reason? Do you play with those expansions? Do you need them? And do you need the real estate that they take up? Step 5 is to distribute. An example I gave was Mysterium earlier. Now, for a long time I didn't even have that game because it was owned by someone in the gaming group. If you know that it's a favourite of your gaming table, but you necessarily don't want to keep it, but your fellow player might, if you offer it to them, you know you'll still be able to play it within gaming groups without having to keep up the space that it takes. Plus, they get to play it with some others too. This is especially good for games that fit specific groups rather than multiple groups so that you don't miss out playing it with others, or ones that are sort of regularly held so you don't miss it when it goes. This way, of course, you still get to play it. There is also the option in addition, so instead of just distributing to your gaming group, you might even be able to donate it to a local gaming cafe, which means when you're going in anyway, you can pick up your game and have a play with that too. Of course, there might be a cost associated with it, so it's not necessarily ideal, but it is an option if you're trying to downsize and have a little bit of difficulty in getting rid of some. And step 6 is depart with the rest. So we've spent this entire article going through and understanding which games are important to our collection, which ones are the soul of our gaming, and which ones we couldn't bear to part with, leaving the rest that maybe we could. It absolutely breaks my heart at this step. I was with it the whole way through, and then I thought I might actually get rid of some of my games. Oh, I don't think I can. Anyway, should you want to, or should you be able to, or should you think it's the right decision, you may be able to bring in some extra pennies to buy more games, which is what I do. Now, there are plenty of places you can do this. You can pop it on things like Facebook Marketplace, on eBay. For our UK watchers, there is Board Game Trading and Chat UK, which is great to be a part of anyway. And you can grab prices so that you're reasonable on places like Board Game Pricing UK. There's a ton of ways to sell your games if that's what you'd like to do. And then you can put it straight back into a Kickstarter to come later. I'm a terrible influence, I know. So you've joined me on our journey of the D6. Dedicate, darlings, delight, downsize, distribute and depart. And once we've got all of that in place, we should have the perfect board game collection. I want to hear your tips. I've asked things like this before on social media. I know some people have a 1-in, 1-out scale. How does that work? How do you choose what goes? Let me know how you keep your collection organised, and hopefully this has been helpful to you if you're thinking of doing the same. My name's been Charlie. I'm with tabletopgaming.co.uk, which you can check out. Please be sure to hit like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.